Hello, I'm Kasey. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to draw and then paint. So I've got a set of watercolors. I've got a little bit of salt here, and this is just regular table salt. You can skip this or you can have it. It's optional. So it's just regular old table salt. Nothing fancy. Any salt will do. And I've got a marker, I've got watercolor paper, and then this is washi tape. So any tape will work that will release from our watercolor paper. So I'm just going to show you how I put the tape on the paper. I've already done 3 sides here, but I just like to go kind of halfway on the paper and halfway onto my work surface. And this tape, this is washi tape, like I said, so it's going to release pretty easily from the paper when we're done. If you have Scotch tape or a tape that doesn't release easily from paper, you can always just kind of rub that on your, if you have a cotton shirt or a towel, kind of rub it over that first, get a little bit of lint on it, and then you can start working around the paper, and that'll make it not stick as badly. So we're going to start with some seagrass, and this is a very simple shape. I want you to concentrate on drawing this and don't erase, don't do anything. Just let your pen or your pencil flow. So first I'm just going to make my landscape. This is just the bottom of where my ocean floor is. And for my seagrass, I'm going to start over here and I'm going to draw a line. It's kind of 1, 2, 3 curves. So it doesn't have to be super curvy. It can be kind of messy. I just want you to have a line that is loosely S-shaped. And then we're going to draw some lines that cross back over it. So come back to this point and kind of go opposite, crossover, go opposite, crossover, and then hit the ground. So this is our first piece of seagrass, and it doesn't look like anything right now, I know, but it's going to look really cool as we move along. So now we're going to work our second piece of seagrass. So we're going to kind of curve up this way. And this one has a base here. So we're going to curve and we're going to make little intersections. So everywhere we have a curve, we make a little intersection. Now for our third piece of seagrass, I'm going to start right over here. And I'm going to come out of this piece and I'm going to kind of make a curvy line that goes up this way. And I'm going to come back down from that line and just kind of cross over. And maybe this seagrass goes behind that one. So it's kind of just stuck right there. And in mine, it's going to come down here. So now we're going to add some detail to our seagrass. So for each of these sections, so we'll start with this section, I'm going to do a straight point to point in that section, and then we're going to kind of curve around. So we're always going to start in the center, and we're going to curve out and come down. So you can do that as many times as you would like, but they're all just going to meet down there at the bottom. So we'll do that for each one. So for this one, I'm going to kind of follow this curve. So I'm going to go point, follow the curve, and hit the other point. So I've sort of divided it in half. And then I'm going to kind of go half and half there. So I'm dividing that in half, but I'm following that line. Same deal here. Half and half. And you can decide how many lines you want to put. I think I want a couple more. So I am going to put another one here. And another one. And then I'm going to add one more here because I like these to be kind of very small striations. So you can see we're kind of adding some really cool detail. And then this last little section, we don't see the bottom of it. So I'm just going to kind of divide it in half and try to follow the curves. And then make another one and make another think I want to add a couple more. Like I said, it's totally your decision how many of these little dividing lines you want to put in. They don't have to be super even. They don't have to be symmetrical. Whatever you're feeling. If you're feeling like this line work just makes you feel really good, keep adding some lines. It's fine. So we're going to do this in each section. So I'm going to go sort of center, and then I'm going to split each of those. And then I'm going to come back through the center of some of these little sections because that is just making me happy. So, do you remember how we did the swoopy ones? So we're going to kind of make a line that follows the shape of this curve from center to center. And then we're going to split each of those, and we're going to keep moving our pencil, our marker, whatever you're using, from that center point to this center point, and kind of just following the curve that we have already established. So these lines are going to be much closer to one another at the top and bottom than they are in the middle. And that's what makes our eyes see the curve. So this one is a longer one. So we're just going to give it this curve. That's what we're going to follow. Just find some relaxation in drawing these lines. They absolutely don't need to be perfect. They don't all need to be the same. They can all be different. Just kind of try and follow that same contour. At it now, and you might be feeling a little 3D. I'm loving it. All right, so now I'm going to go to this one, and it can be kind of straight because we're just looking at this piece very straight on, and then these will be a little curved. Same with this one. And then I'll put a few more in there just to give it that depth and direction that we're looking for. Now this section, because we've got a little perspective happening here, we're going to have to imagine that one set of lines goes behind the seagrass we have already drawn. So let's split this in half. And then we'll split this one in half, but we're going to kind of pick up our pen and then just draw it back down here. I think I'd like to split these a little bit more. So this one is half and half. This center section is going to get split. And sometimes I kind of lose place, like how many sections do I have? But it doesn't matter, just make it up as you go. There. So now we've got our seagrass, and it's all got its striations, and it's looking really, really great. So you can stop here if you want. You don't have to put anything else in this drawing, and it's still going to be very satisfying. But I would like to add a flower. So if you'd like to add a little sea flower, you can join me. If not, you can just leave your seagrass like it is. So I'm going to kind of make this little cup shape. So it's like a C. And then we're going to come around and we're just going to close it. Almost like you're drawing Pac-Man, but you close it all the way. And then you close this side all the way. And then we can make one more little triangle in the middle. So that is my flower. Whee! And you can put little embellishments on this flower if you'd like to. We could always make lines on the flower if we wanted to. I think I'm going to leave it the way it is. And down here in our sand, I don't think that we need to put anything in there. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to paint. So if you haven't used watercolor before, you're gonna need to, this is my water, so you're gonna need to wet your brush. And on this seagrass, you can make it any colors that you like. I think I'm gonna make mine, because I know that my water is gonna be blue. I think my seagrass is gonna be, I'll make my first one purple. So I'm just gonna color this whole section purple. And I don't need a lot of pigment. I just want to fill it in. So I went into my paint one time, and I really don't need any more paint. I've got plenty of paint. So I'm just gonna keep dipping back in that water. And the way I like to do my seagrass, and this is a really personal choice, you don't have to do it this way, but it's what I do. I do every other section a different color. So if these are going to be purple in another color, then the center section is going to be purple. And I'm just filling it in nice and light, nice and slow. And I'm using just the tip of that brush to get the edges. Just moving that water around, using the paint that is already down. And I'm filling that section in with that purple. So this one is going to go purple, and then whatever the next color is I decide here. And this one also will alternate. But what's going to happen down here is I'm going to go purple, and then the other color in purple. So this bottom one will be purple. So I'm just going to fill this in. And like I said, I want this to be translucent. I want to be able to see the lines that I drew. So I'm going to add some paint, but I'm going to keep adding water to it and not more of that paint color, because that is what makes watercolor so magical and gets that nice translucent look to it. So that is what I'm going for. All right, so now it's time. Oh, we have one more section that can be purple. This section up here can be color number 1. So I'm just going to bring some water in here. And I'm going to use the tip of my brush to get into those little tiny spaces. And then I'll brush it around. And I got a little tiny dot of paint on the white part. You can see that, but that's not a big deal, because later we, excuse me, later we will be painting over the water. So it's not a very big deal. So now I'm going to rinse that purple out of my brush. And I think that the other sides of my leaves are going to be kind of a brown, maybe. So I'm going to go with brown. And I'm going to lay down some of this brown and see how it looks. All right, that looks all right to me. That's going to be okay. I might add some purple into this brown. We'll see. So what you want to avoid is getting too close to that leaf that we already colored. I already put paint in that leaf. So I'm going to try to stay away from it. I'm just using the tip of my brush to fill in that leaf that I drew. And I'm going to get over here and try not to touch that leaf. It's kind of, sometimes you get target fixation. It's like the more you try not to touch it, the more your brush just kind of wants to go to it. So now I'm going to do a little trick, and I'm just going to get a teeny tiny bit of purple, just a tiny bit, and splash it in there. And then I'm going to rinse out my brush, and then I'm going to mix that purple around. So I sort of have this brownish purple color. And you are more than welcome to mix your paint somewhere else. You don't have to mix your paint on the paper. But that's what I chose to do. Oh, I forgot this piece down here also belongs to this leaf. So I'm going to use some of the paint off of this section. I'm just going to let it absorb into my brush. And then I'm going to go over and fill this in. All right, so that's kind of a brownish with a little bit of purple leaf. Brownish purple. Now here's a trick. So I've noticed there's a pool of water here. I'm going to vacuum a little bit of that off with my brush. I'm going to lift that, kind of sweep it into the rest. So you can see when watercolor dries, it's not all the same color because these pools of water kind of hang out, and it dries a little darker in those spaces. I think that's beautiful. I have zero problems with it. All right, so what I'm going to do here is more of that brown, and then I'll add the purple. So I'm trying to use quite a bit of water. So I'm putting a little bit of brown pigment in there, but I'm using mostly water, and that's going to bring me this beautiful translucent color. And we can make it kind of, can brighten it up a little bit with that purple, because what I like to think is this is a long piece of seagrass and it's just kind of twisting under the water. So we're seeing one side, the other side, one side. So I'm going to add that tiny bit of purple, and I'm just going to streak it down like that. And it's interesting to see how this purple interacts with the brown. And the nature of watercolor is that you don't have to really blend it well. As it dries, it's going to act a certain way. And we get these really cool, like where this is drying here, we get these little interesting edges. Oops, I just dropped a little down here. Let me blend that in. We get these interesting edges. And it mimics nature really, really nicely. All right, so I'm not gonna paint this right now. I'm gonna kind of wait for those edges to dry. So I'm gonna head over to this one and add the water in. And you can see I'm just picking up the tiniest bit of pigment. And that's giving me that very translucent, beautiful, brownish, light brown color. And then I'm going to add a tiny bit of purple to it. And that purple and that brown just are so interesting when the paints interact. Just kind of mixing it around with the very tip of this brush. And then that purple is kind of dried, so I'm going to come over, and it's a little risky, but I'm going to try and touch this to my line. And you can see it's bleeding a little bit right there. It's all right. It looks kind of, it's just going to be a more interesting watercolor personality as we get toward the end. All right, so this piece, because we've got purple and brown, so this piece is going to need to be brown. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make it look a different color than this leaf that it's next to, while still using brown and purple. So I'm going to get my brown in here, and get it nice and translucent and watered down. And then I'm kind of going to take a look at it once I get this brown down and decide, do I want to put purple in it? And if I do I want to put purple all throughout or just in one part? Maybe I want to make this one a little browner than that leaf behind it so that we have some separation. So that is what I'm doing here. So that's a little browner. And then I'm going to add a little purple. I'm going to come up from the bottom just to see what happens. And I'm going to bring that purple from the bottom. But I'm kind of going to leave this part brownish because I don't want it to blend in with that color behind. Kind of want it to stay here. All right, so I have some more, I have some extra liquid here, so I'm going to pull that off the paper because I can. All right, so now it's time to decide what color is this flower going to be. So I'm thinking my background is water. It's going to be blue. My underneath part here, I think it's probably going to be kind of a yellowish orangish color. So that leaves me with like red and pink. So I think I'm going to go with red and pink for this flower. I'm going to paint it first with water. And I will show you how much fun this can be. So I'm just painting the whole thing in with water. Just water. I'm just wetting the area where that flower is. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to get this pinkish, it's like a magenta color. And remember, you can use any color you want. And then I'm just going to add this with little dots. And since we already have water on the paper, it's a beautiful light pink color. We don't have any of that deep magenta because we went ahead and set water down at first. And that's what I want. I am not looking for a super saturated color. I'm just looking for a beautiful pink that kind of goes with what we've already got here. All right, so now grab a piece of paper, something you can kind of fan with. I'm gonna grab another little piece of art. And let's fan down here toward the bottom, because the next thing we're gonna paint is the sand at the bottom of our ocean floor. And I just want to make sure that this area here is drying well. And if you have a hair dryer or any other kind of little heat dryer, you can use that and kind of cheat. This is my little, it's an embossing tool, but it dries paint really nicely. It's a great little paint drying hack. Woo! All right. So I'm gonna paint this bottom part, and I think I'm gonna use this orange here that's kind of a dreamsicle color. So I'm just gonna bring it in. I'm gonna add a lot of water because I don't want this to be a very, very saturated orange. So I'm just grabbing more water and I'm just dragging it across the edge here. So you can fill in an area without doing this with your brush. You can just drag your brush slowly across, and it works just as well. So now that I've applied this color down, I want it to be light, so I'm drying my brush out and I'm going over and I'm just taking away some of that pigment that I laid down. And I'm going in a left to right, right to left motion. And that's going to give it a little bit of wave. So if you have any brush strokey looking lines in there, they're going to be right to left. So they'll be going the correct direction for our sea floor. All right. Next is going to be the water. So this is where it's optional. You don't have to do it, but you can use salt during the time that you put the water down. The water does not have to all be the same color. You can use some different colors throughout. So I'm going to paint down just plain water first, because I want my background to be a beautiful translucent kind of different colors of blue. So I'm putting down a little bit of water first, and we're going to paint this section by section. So we're going to kind of paint this left side first, and then we'll move up and over. So I'll start with this blue-green, and you can choose any colors for the water that you'd like. And I'm just gonna dot this down and just throw that color in there. And the one thing I don't want to do is involve my blue with the bottom of the sea there. So I'm trying not to be too terribly watery, but still get some pigment down there. And again, I'm just trying to avoid the lines around the edges of my seagrass. And once you've got water down, you can go back in there and you can kind of just tap with that blue and add more pigment if you'd like to. And this is where I'm going to come in with my salt. So we want to sprinkle just the tiniest amount of salt in that area that we painted. You can see it's not a lot of salt. It's just a little. There's just a few pieces. And then we're just going to go on painting. So I'm going to put down some water. And it's eventually going to mix with that paint that's already down. And that's fine, because we can always add more pigment to that water that's already on the page. And I like to just go down and gently and carefully line like that. So then we know we've kind of created this boundary for our water that it's not going to go past. So we can see where we've painted, where we've put down water, and where we haven't. So I'm just going to create the boundary first. And you can use your brush shape to just get that point in the more difficult parts to reach. And then spread it out. You can add more water. So you can see when we don't put water down first and we just paint straight on the page, it's harder to get rid of that little border at the edge of the paint. So that's why I like to put the water down first. Then it's not as complicated later. Just using the very tip of my brush to move this paint around. And the salt needs to go on while your paint is still wet. It won't work if your paint's already dried. So I just try and kind of get a little section of paint down, and then I'll throw down more salt. And it'll still work for us. And if you're having any trouble getting really close to these edges, just leave a little moat, just leave a little open space. And if you've got too much water, Just zip it right off there. Dry your brush out and get rid of that water. All right, so I'm gonna put a little more salt down. And I am just gonna keep moving. Now, an optional thing to do if you want your water to be different colors together, you can go in, like I'm gonna get some of this, let's get some of this blue-green. And where I have some wet spots, I can just dot that blue-green down and add a little bit of interest to my water. Because as it dries, it's gonna make some interesting patterns, but we'll still have these different colors of water kind of all around. I love to watch this paint kind of take over. It's so interesting. All right, so I'm gonna go back and add, I'm gonna paint with my water because that's my safe way to get color down. And then I'm going to go back to the original color I was using. I'm just going to add that blue. And you can add more blue places where you left off. It just makes the water have a little more character. You can see where I kind of missed a little bit of that white there, so I'm going to go back in and try to get it. It's a tiny bit risky, but I did it. All right, so again, I'm going in with some water or just some very, very light pigment. And I'm trying to keep away from the edges of this flower because I don't want to mix my sea color with my flower bud. Oh, it mixed a little there. All right, well, welcome to my first and now my second mistake of this painting. That's all right. It's still going to be great at the end. I'm not worried about it. All right. I'm just going to dot it down. I'm hoping it takes over this place where the flower kind of bled through. Getting really close in these nooks and crannies. It's just an exercise in learning your brush and learning your paint and learning your body, how your body likes to paint. All right, so I'm gonna throw a little salt down because I'm noticing that this is kind of drying. I'm gonna need to hurry up. All right, and I'm just gonna blend these little edges as they dry, so that the next water I put down goes in and we don't have too many hard edges. I am going to add some of these lovely green blue to the wet parts. Just for some more interest and some more color. And then I'll go back into my blue and pull it on down here. So we're just filling in and bringing that ocean down between our blades of seagrass. And now it's time for a little more salt. So you can see I'm just putting a little bit of salt on there, not too much. You don't want clumps of salt if you can help it. Go back in and bring some of my blue-green in there. Ooh, that's dark. That's really pretty. Okay, I'm just filling in my little tiny white spots here. And then we just have our one last section of sea. So, oh, I need to go in the water first. All right. So I'm coming in with water. And there are a few little salt crystals in the water over here. Absolutely fine. They'll just dissolve, and then they'll pull the pigment when they crystallize. It'll give us this really interesting texture. Ooh, I love watching that. That is so much fun. Okay. So I'm just gonna blend this out into the water so that we have our beautiful blue ocean behind this last piece of seagrass. It's working beautifully. I think I just dropped some water onto my seagrass, so let's pull that right away. Alright, so I need to bring this water down and just line this last section of this leaf and line along the floor here and fill it in. And now I can bring my pigment over I'm going to pull this down. This is a little darker than I want it, so I'm going to add some water and blend it downward. There we go. Add a little more of this pigment, and I'm kind of sweeping it over into the water that's already on the page there. Ooh, excuse me, I've got a dry throat today. All right, so we got down on the floor here, so I'm just gonna wipe that away. I'm gonna let this sit here and dry for a minute, and then I'll go back to it. Make sure this is nice and watery before I throw salt on it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of that green blue back to it. I'm a weird white spot here. I'm just going to water that down. All right, so I'm going to add my green blue and just watch it bloom right in there. That is so fun. So now I can come across this place where I kind of messed up a little bit earlier, and I'm just going to pull this paint sideways and we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be fine. All right, so now is the time to kind of look around, see if you have any white spaces. Like I've got one right here that I want to mend a little bit. So I'm just gonna go in with this tip of my brush and try and close those in. And you don't have to do this. This is one of those little tiny things I like to do just to make close up these spaces. But if you don't, it's still gonna be a really beautiful piece. Don't worry about it. Now that these pieces of seagrass have had some time to dry, I can get a little closer in on these edges. So that's what I'm doing right now. All right, last but not least, we're gonna add a little bit of texture to the ground here on the bottom of the ocean. I'm gonna add, let's go in with yellow. I'm gonna go in with yellow. And I'm just gonna kind of paint some different little stripes. And they don't have to be really watery stripes. It can be kind of dry. But I'm just gonna go in and paint them to give it a little bit of texture. Now you can leave your flower the way it is. You can go back in and paint some extra color into that flower if you're feeling that. I think I'm gonna give my flower a little bit more of this magenta. Maybe just pull this down a little bit. That's interesting. The purple mixed with the brown kind of really looks like this magenta, doesn't it? It's a little matchier than I planned, but that's okay. I'm gonna roll with it and we're gonna see what happens. And I also think I got a little bit of salt in my flour, so it's gonna give it a tiny bit of texture that I hadn't planned on. But that is also fine. All right, so there's one last kind of final little thing we can do. There's something you can add if you'd like. I like to speckle my paintings. It's just one of those things I do. I think it's a good time. So I'm gonna speckle with, let's see. I'm gonna speckle maybe with some yellow. So you wanna get kind of a really watery mix in your brush. And you're gonna bang it on something else. So like, you're just throwing tiny little speckles all through. So I think I'm also going to add some blue speckles. And if you want to water something down, you can bring some water over into the lid. And that allows you to dilute your paint a bit. So I'm going, there we go, there's my speckles. So I like the speckles because I think they kind of give us, first of all, it's really fun to just like make a mess and get these speckles everywhere. And they will get everywhere. So if you're in a place that you don't want to splash paint like on your computer or something, maybe skip the step of the speckles. But I love them. I think they add depth. I think they make it a little more fun. I'm gonna maybe also do some white speckles. And not all watercolor sets will have a white in it. So this is only if you've got white. But I like adding this fun little layer of speckles. And it's gonna blend in where your paint's wet, so you don't see it necessarily in the water. But you will see it along the edges and the middle part of your seagrass. So speckle to your heart's desire. I don't think there's ever enough speckling, but I'm gonna stop for the sake of time. And then I'm gonna look for some places that I have water pooling, and I'm gonna go ahead and take that off. So like here I have a lot of water. Let's see, over here I have a lot of water. So you can just roll that off. This is an optional step. If you can, you know, step away from your painting and let it dry, you can leave that water on there. It'll all evaporate. And I know that I want to finish this and show you all. So I'm going to roll this water off. All right, so through a very magical process, this painting is dry. I'm gonna remove the tape because this is the best part, and this is why I tape stuff. Because when you take this tape off, it just looks really great. So I'm gonna start at the top, and I'm gonna roll the tape back this way. And it's just gonna leave this really nice white border. Peel it back. Lovely border. And the last piece of painting is always going to be to take it, grab a pen or a pencil, and sign your name. You can put the date if you want, but that's it. All done.